He was 19 years old, autistic, sensitive, someone who needed structure to feel safe and calm to stay grounded. But on a night in March 2023 in Ohio, calm was the one thing Isaiah Trammell didn't have. It started as a mental health crisis at his apartment in Lebanon. Neighbors heard shouting, confusion, the sounds of someone struggling to hold himself together. They called for help, expecting medics or a crisis team. Instead, police arrived. When officers checked his name, they found an outstanding warrant, a small domestic charge from a previous outburst during another mental episode. His family later said Isaiah didn't even know about it. But that didn't matter. Procedure took over. The 19-year-old was handcuffed and transported to the Montgomery County Jail in Dayton. It should have been routine. A quick booking, paperwork, maybe release the next day. But within 10 hours, Isaiah would be dead.
They knew he was autistic.
Remember what Sergeant said? You're going to go in there for 10 hours next time you go in there. You want to do that? Then have a seat and chill out. Sit down. Sit down.
Inside the jail, the cameras captured what words can't fully explain. Isaiah pacing, panicking, trying to make sense of the walls around him. The lights above were harsh, the sounds constant. Keys, footsteps, shouts. For most, it's just background noise. For someone with autism, it's a storm. He began banging on the door, calling out, crying. Not to threaten, but to be heard. His actions were signs of distress, not aggression. But in an environment built for control, distress looks like defiance. Guards watched. Some gave short commands. No one stepped in. Hours passed. The footage shows him growing more desperate, flailing, pacing, collapsing in exhaustion. His body language changes from agitation to pure fear. Still, there's no medical team, no counselor, no one to interpret what's happening for what it is. A medical emergency.
Hey, gentlemen.
Guys, lock back down. Let's go.
The more they try to, control the stemming, like the more irritated they get. He hated to be touched. He hated to be restrained. Even as a baby, the car seat alone. Oh, that was awful.
Please, let's talk about it.
I do know they stripped him naked. And he hated his body to be exposed. And he kept telling them that. He kept asking them if they would just talk to him. Please just listen.
Can someone please listen to me?
Being confined. He hated to be confined. Absolutely, that would trigger him, and he would just panic. In the video, you can see the hematoma. You can see it in the video.
Please, I want meds. If I have meds, if I have meds, stop, please. Please, the quickest we get me meds, the earliest they might stop.
Outside of 50 cents, so you have how much?
Is it Isaiah? Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Isaiah.
He just wanted to call his mom. I could have calmed him down. It would have been too late by that point, though, if they wouldn't. The doctor told me, had we gotten him sooner, we could have saved him.
Then the chaos shifted. The shouting faded into exhaustion. The camera shows Isaiah restrained in a chair, stripped, vulnerable, trembling, his body fighting against fear more than force. Minutes pass, his cries weaken. He slumps forward, still restrained, the energy drained from his body. The silence stretched longer, too long. When they finally realized he needed medical attention, his screams had already stopped. The urgency that should have come hours earlier was too late. Officials later said procedures were followed, that staff responded appropriately once they realized he was unresponsive. But that acknowledgement still came hours too late. His cries for help were ignored, and that the jail wasn't equipped to care for someone like him. They've since filed a lawsuit against Montgomery County and its medical provider, demanding to know why their son's last moments were met with indifference.
You could see in his mugshot how distressed he was. I had nightmares for months. The fear in his eyes. I've never seen anyone so scared.
Autism doesn't look like disobedience. It looks like confusion in a world that refuses to slow down. And for Isaiah, the noise, the flashing lights, the isolation, all of it compounded into panic that no one tried to understand. His mother keeps his drawings, sketches of calm places, open spaces, the kind of world he wished he could live in. She says her son wasn't violent. He was vulnerable. And in that cell, vulnerability became a death sentence. After his death, crowds gathered outside the Montgomery County Jail, holding candles, signs, and each other. The words, 10 hours too long, echoed through the crowd. They weren't just mourning Isaiah, they were warning the system that failed him. Because this wasn't a violent confrontation. It wasn't a case of resistance. It was fear, untreated, unseen, and ultimately fatal. 10 hours. That's all it took for a young man to go from a call for help to a tragedy behind locked doors. Isaiah Trammell's story forces one question no parent, no officer, and no system can afford to ignore. When someone in crisis calls for help, do we listen? Or do we just lock the door? Isaiah's death showed how quickly control can turn to crisis. The next story shows it again. This time, when nature's instinct takes over in the middle of a peaceful neighborhood. The footage you're about to see captures a moment that begins like any other. Quiet, routine, almost peaceful. Two mothers and their young daughters stand outside their home in Brazil, waiting for the school bus. The morning air is still, the street calm. But within seconds, everything changes. There's no warning, no bark, just impact. The women barely have time to react before the animal lunges, knocking one of them to the ground. Panic erupts. Screams echo across the street as the mothers try desperately to shield their children, pushing them behind while fighting off the dog with their bare hands. Neighbors hear the chaos and sprint from nearby homes, armed with whatever they can find: sticks, tools, sheer instinct. The entire struggle lasts less than a minute, but in that single minute, a normal morning becomes a nightmare that none of them will ever forget. Across the world, incidents like this are rare, but when they happen, they're sudden, violent, and impossible to predict. According to global safety data, thousands of people are attacked by dogs every year, and while most bites are minor, the majority of fatal cases involve strong, territorial breeds like pit bulls, Rottweilers, and Mastiffs. Experts say these animals aren't inherently evil, but when neglected, mistreated, or poorly trained, their instincts can turn deadly in seconds. In Brazil alone, dozens of severe dog attacks are reported each month, often involving stray or unrestrained animals. And in most cases, the victims aren't strangers, they're family members, neighbors, or children caught off guard in what should have been safe, familiar places. What makes this footage so haunting isn't just the attack itself, it's how quickly it unfolds. One moment, a mother waits for her daughter's school bus. Next, she's fighting for both of their lives. And as you watch, you realize the truth about moments like this. Danger doesn't always arrive with warning. Sometimes it comes quietly, padding across the street until it's too close to stop. What happened in Brazil was chaos in daylight, but in this next clip, the terror comes after dark. 3 masked strangers turning a quiet home into a nightmare. What you're about to see looks like something straight out of a horror movie, but it isn't. It's real.
3 people wearing Halloween masks terrorizing a family in Alexandria, Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C., late Tuesday night.
Worst nightmare.
The 3 apparently laughing at first, but their actions quickly becoming more sinister. From pulling on the front door,
Open the door! Open the door!
to making the motion of cutting their throat before threatening to break into the house.
I'm gonna count to 10. If this door doesn't open, we're gonna come in. 1, 2.
Recently, late one night in Alexandria, Virginia, just days before Halloween, a family's quiet evening turned into something out of their worst nightmare. It began with a knock at the door, harmless at first, almost festive. On the porch, 3 figures stood wearing Halloween masks, their laughter echoing through the night. The family thought it was a prank, someone having fun before the holiday. But within seconds, that laughter turned into something darker. Inside the house, a woman named Shayla and her family stood frozen, watching from behind the locked door. She tried to tell them to leave, to get off the property, but the moment she spoke, she realized it wasn't a joke anymore.
I said Happy Halloween when they first came, asked them to get off the property. When they didn't, that's when I realized it wasn't a joke anymore.
The masked trio moved from the front door to the side of the house, then to the backyard, tearing down a section of fence, ripping the screen from the porch door, trying every entrance they could find. What began as laughter had become a full-blown intrusion. And then, just as suddenly as it began, they were gone. The family never saw their masked faces again, only the sound of the door shaking in the dark. When police arrived, the damage was clear: broken fences, torn screens, and a family too terrified to sleep. The Alexandria police chief later called the video deeply alarming, saying that what might have started as a prank had clearly crossed into criminal territory. Because trespassing, vandalism, and threats aren't Halloween games, they're crimes. Authorities say they're now investigating with promising leads and are determined to identify all 3 suspects. They've made it clear, once caught, these individuals will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But for Shayla and her family, justice doesn't erase what happened. Her mother now lives in fear, afraid every knock at the door might not be friendly, afraid the laughter outside might not be innocent. This incident is a reminder that what some call a joke can feel like terror to those on the other side of the door. Because when 3 masked strangers pull on your handle in the middle of the night, you think about survival. That family faced fear right at their own front door. In this next story, it comes from the street, a single reckless driver and a bus full of children caught in its path. It's February 23rd, 2022, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. A quiet afternoon just before sunset. Children from George Sanchez Charter School are heading home. 23 of them packed inside a yellow school bus, laughing, talking, their day nearly over. Then, from nowhere, a white Ford Mustang appears, flying down Gibson Boulevard, locked in a street race. The driver, later identified as 49-year-old Mario Perez, is pushing well over 100 miles an hour. It takes only seconds for the moment of impact. The Mustang slams into the side of the bus. Metal bends, glass shatters, and the bus tilts violently, rolling onto its side before sliding to a stop in a cloud of dust and screams. Inside, chaos. Children thrown from their seats, backpacks and shoes scattering through the air. One student's leg breaks instantly. Another suffers a fractured pelvis. Several others are pulled from the wreck with cuts and bruises. All alive, but forever changed. First responders swarm the scene, sirens cutting through the smoke. The driver of the Mustang is pulled out alive, his leg shattered. Witnesses say the crash sounded like an explosion. The video, later released by police, shows the violence of the collision, a normal day turned catastrophic in a single frame. Perez was arrested and charged with great bodily harm by vehicle and multiple counts of reckless driving. He later pleaded no contest. The judge sentenced him to 4 years in prison, far less than the 15 originally sought by prosecutors. For the children, the sentence means little. The trauma doesn't fade when the court closes. Most still struggle to ride buses today. The memory of that day frozen in the screech of tires and the sudden silence that followed. Street racing has become a growing problem across U.S. cities. Thrill seekers using public roads as drag strips, pushing cars far beyond what the streets were built to handle. In Albuquerque alone, police have recorded dozens of similar cases in recent years, each one risking lives that never chose to be part of the race. Because it only takes one reckless decision to turn routine into tragedy. One race that was never worth running, and 23 children who will never forget how fast normal can disappear. Those children survived what should have been a routine ride home. But in this next video, a man on a simple amusement park ride sadly won't be as lucky. It was a warm afternoon at Lagoon Amusement Park in Farmington, Utah, the kind of summer day built for laughter, flashing lights, and the sound of families drifting from ride to ride. But for one group of visitors, that joy would turn into something unforgettable, and not for the reasons they hoped. On August 14, 2021, a 32-year-old man boarded the park's Sky Ride, a slow-moving chairlift that carries guests high above the park, giving them a view of the midway below. It's one of Lagoon's oldest and calmest attractions. No speed, no adrenaline, just a quiet glide between the trees. But that day, something went terribly wrong. Lucy Grace Astilla was celebrating a birthday with her husband. They had climbed into one of the colorful chairs, camera rolling, capturing their view as the ride began to move. Just another memory, until her husband noticed something strange ahead of them.
She was not prepared for what her camera was about to capture.
My husband noticed there's a guy hanging on that ride.
Why is doing like that?
That's Lucy's voice, stunned at the sight of a man hanging from the Sky Ride.
I'm thinking this is just a professional gymnast or a stunt.
But that wasn't a professional. Just after leaving the view of the camera, the man fell.
The man struggled for several seconds, trying to pull himself back up, the crowd below shouting, helpless. Then, suddenly, he slipped. The camera shook. Lucy gasped, and the man disappeared from view, falling nearly 50 feet to the pavement below.
The incident is one that Lucy won't soon forget.
Last night I was not able to sleep thinking of that man.
The ride continued its slow path through the air as screams rose from the crowd. There was no stopping it mid-route. Lucy kept filming, her voice trembling, as people on the ground rushed toward the scene. Emergency teams arrived within minutes. The man was still alive when they reached him and was airlifted to the University of Utah hospital in critical condition. But hours later, authorities confirmed what many feared. He hadn't survived. Park officials later stated that the sky ride showed no signs of malfunction. It had operated safely since 1974 for nearly half a century without a major incident. The cause of the fall remains uncertain, but the outcome was devastating. Dozens of witnesses, including children, saw the event unfold. Psychologists later warned that such moments can leave lasting trauma, not just for the victim's family, but for every person who watched, powerless to help. Lucy said it best. She came to celebrate life, not to witness the end of one. What she caught on camera wasn't a stunt or an illusion. It was a reminder of how fragile even the safest moments can be. In places built for joy and laughter, tragedy feels out of place, but it happens all the same. A single slip, a single second, and the world changes. Because even under a bright summer sky, gravity never gives second chances. That fall ended in tragedy. But this last clip that you're going to see shows not a human, but a cat, hanging on by pure instinct, clinging to the edge of the sky. The clip begins. Now that was all for today, folks. If you enjoyed these horrifying clips, click to see more on the video on screen.